and that their taste in wine in general is very poor. No, we gotta be more subtle than that. I don't want them to know that we're thinking about them. What are you doing?
What's the crack, guys? My name is Metherz, and today we're going to bring you my Oracle Think Tank deck. It's about like the 6th or 7th or 8th iteration of it, and I think I've solved it in terms of how I want to play it at least. I think a lot of Oracle Think Tank decks are very different in comparison to the other decks that come in the set. Like Kagero, I'm pretty sure it's just Solve, and same with like Link Joker. But OTT has quite a lot of variance in terms of how many grade 3s you run, what type of grade 2s, and what type of grade 1s you run. But at least I'll show you what this deck does, or the idea behind it anyway. If you actually see it in action, we will have posted, by the time this goes up, a game where I play against Marcus in his Great Nature, and it's about half an hour long, so you can get to see, you know, how this deck actually operates. But without further ado, let's get into it. So obviously the first card you want to look into is Susanoo, who's obviously your main grade 3, and it's pretty much the basis of this deck. All of this operates in tandem with Susanoo, or does something similar to Susanoo. So Susanoo's first ability is just a Kickstarter. One, place like the top 2 cards of your deck, reveal up to one from among them, and put it to the top, and put the other to your bottom. So cards you're looking to put to the top are things like Amaterasu, Ikishima, or triggers, or maybe something that you just desperately need for that turn, i.e., you know, a Muto or Cassata or Tetramagus. But usually Amaterasu, Ikishima, or triggers are your hard targets. Though what I would say is, because it reveals it, if you do end up putting an Amaterasu and Ikishima to the top of your deck from its first ability, these cards will bind themselves, which might damage your long-term ability to apply pressure. So obviously, you know, if you just bind 1 or 2, you might be okay. Well, you'll definitely, if you just bind 1, you'll be fine. But you know, if you're binding 2, 3, and even 4, it's not going to bode well for you and your ability to go, you know, to the late game. Second ability is the main one, and it's just unbelievably powerful. So cost current +1, so +1, reveal 2 cards from the top of your deck and put them into your hand, and activate all trigger effects of the revealed card. If your soul is a grade 3, reveal 3 cards instead of 2. So obviously you're aiming for the reveal 3, but you're stacking your deck to make sure that those cards are triggers or Amaterasus or Ikishimas, because in this one aspect, or this using the second ability, means that you won't bind these 2. They'll just go straight to your hand, which you then can use to further other abilities. For instance, you could perfect guard Amaterasu the next turn and put it back on top of Muto. So drawing her, she's not a dead card anywhere in the deck, especially like not even in the drop zone, because you could heal her out. Sorry, in the damage zone, because you could heal her out and then Muto her back in from the drop. So drawing her is not bad, and she's an alright rearguard, to be fair. She's good for filtering. We'll explain that in a wee bit. But yeah, the whole entire deck is to stack those top 3 and make them as impactful as possible. Or if they're not particularly great, you know, they could be parts to then further your turn later on. For instance, they could be a Diviner Sachi, or a Minimur Kamo, or a Muto, who can then, you know, try and fix what's going on. But usually that doesn't really happen because you can filter it quite well. Next is Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu. So first ability, when I was talking about bind, this is what I meant. So when revealed by a card's effect, bind the top card of your deck, and one of your Vanguards gets 10k in a crit. So what I was saying firstly is, if you use Susanoo's ability and reveal her, because she is now the top card of the deck, she will bind herself. Your Vanguard does get 10k in a crit instead, but you know, you're potentially losing out on a perfect guard from Protect 1, a decent rear guard, and also you're losing out on cycling it if you just instantaneously bind it. Again, not detrimental if you do 1, but any more than 2 can, you know, swing the game in your opponent's favor. Second ability is the filtering ability I referred to. So Vanguard Rearguard, when it attacks, cost is discard a card from your hand, like the top 3 cards from your deck, and reveal up to 1 normal unit from among them and put it into your hand, and put the rest on top of your deck in any order you wish. So perfect scenario is, you know, it goes crit, normal unit, crit. You're then able to slide out the normal unit, now to your hand. Therefore your drive check, which is from your Vanguard, is just going to be 2 crits rather than a crit and a normal unit. So very good for filtering out your drive check, especially if you don't know what the top 3 cards of your deck are. So sometimes what you'll do is you'll end on Susanoo's ability, his second ability. You'll play cards to stack the top of your deck in any order that you want, then reveal those cards with Susanoo, and then you go instantly into the battle phase. And at that point, you don't know what the top two cards of your deck are, but she can sort of fix that and give you more information. So it's particularly useful in that case. And also, having her as a rearguard can pose some threat, so then your opponent might attack that, in which case you'll be able to Muto it back. So it's not a dead card. If it's not in the bind zone, it's not a dead card. There's plenty of times where you can cycle it for many different purposes. So next is Divine Ochre Sachi. So its cost is Vanguard Rearguard, cost is Soul Blast, and discard a card from your hand, reveal the top card of your deck and put it into your hand and activate all trigger effects of the revealed card. If you revealed normal unit, he gains 6k until end of the turn. So I would use Kursachi more to, rather than use it for the trigger ability, I typically leave that to Susanoo. I typically like it to fetch me parts. So, and then it goes up to a 15k attacker, which then, if boosted by like an 8k or 13k or 18k or 23k booster, he's always hitting force numbers, which is unbelievably perfect, especially whenever there's so many good force decks out currently. The N's just come out, or the X has just come out even. You got MLB, Gear Chronicle, Altamile, and Neonectar, all of which are 13k bases. So being able to hit force numbers in this stage, obviously there's no tournaments, so we don't know how well those decks are going to actually challenge Raven and Vanquisher, but even just the fact that there's a lot of good force decks means you're going to see them more often. So being able to hit those brackets are very good. And then, obviously, if you have to, really, getting a trigger effect, you're not going to say no to it, but I would typically use it to fetch parts. So I typically like discard an Amaterasu. Say if I know the top card is a Tetramagus or a Muto, I would typically use his ability to discard an Amaterasu, draw the Muto, then the Muto then puts the Amaterasu to the top of deck from bin. That's like a typical play that I would do. So not only are you getting Amaterasu's, yeah. So we're going to go into Goddess of Streamwaters Ikishima. So first ability is very similar to that as Amaterasu. When revealed by a card's effect, bind the top card of your deck, and one of your Vanguards gets 10k until the end of the turn. So say if you use Susanoo's ability, you reveal an Amaterasu, an Ikishima, and a crit trigger, your Vanguard just went up by 10k, 20k in a crit, and then you've got the flex as to where you can put the critical power and crit itself. Again, you might end up binding herself. Again, not detrimental if you do it 1 or 2 times, but any more than 3, you start running out of things that help you reveal, because the second ability is a reveal ability. So when placed, like the top card of your deck and put it to the top or bottom of your deck, and if the revealed card is a normal unit, this unit gets 10k until the end of the turn. So by herself, she's 19k attacker, which is good against MLB, because MLB is 18k base. So 19k attacker just by revealing a normal unit, which again you can stack. Third, this is like the sort of flex card or flex pick that you have. There's several other cards you could make an argument to play. For instance, there's a Diviner card that's Current Blast 1, reveal a top. Well, Current Blast 1 if you find more cards in hand, reveal a top card. And depending on the type of card it is, your opponent can only, I believe they can't use that type of card, or they can only use that type of guard. But it's a counter blast, so I don't particularly like it. Then there's Promise Daughter, who's used mainly against the cross, because the cross has a decent amount of retire, but again, we have no idea how the cross has affected the meta because no tournaments are going on. So I prefer a more utility from this grade 2. So Sapient Angel, it basically you check top 3 cards and order them in any way you want and put them back to the top. So extremely good with Susanoo. You know exactly what you could be going into, and therefore you can amend those 3 cards. You could take out a normal unit by drawing it with Tetramagus and put a crit in and reveal that crit and things like that. It's pretty solid. It helps you, especially whenever you go into, say it's the last card you play in your main phase. You know the top 3 cards of your deck, so you're able, and you can amend them. So say it goes again, similar to Amaterasu. It could go crit, normal unit, crit. You can then move the normal unit to the third card, therefore you're not drive checking it. Or what you could do even is say if the top 3 cards, obviously this is very circumstantial, but top 3 cards are a heal, crit, you could put the heal to the bottom. So effectively when it goes into your turn, you know you've got a heal stacked to the very top of your deck. Therefore, you know, you could get a cheeky 6th damage heal or a 5th damage heal and then pump your Vanguard up by 10k, which can annoy some decks. And also getting a 6 damage heal can infuriate your opponent, which is always nice. So then Divine Sword Amunimurkamo, he's just a grade 3 searcher, that basically every clan's getting, but I think he's personally one of the better ones. First ability is if you ever reveal the card, he gains 5k until the end of the turn. So he's a 13k attacker and 13k booster, which then goes really well with Sachi, because that's a force column right there. And Divine's, its actual ability is obviously just check on place, Vanguard or Rearguard, check top 5, add a grade 3 to hand, and discard a card. So it's pretty good going into turn, any turn really. It can do a lot of prep work. So say you put, if you're set in your hand with a Susanoo and you find an Amaterasu, your Vanguard's getting 10k and Craic, so it reveals it, but then you can then discard the Amaterasu, put it back on top with Muto, then reveal it later. So your Vanguard just got 20k and 2 crit. So the discardability with Amaterasu is particularly good. You could also even do it with Akishima. The Amaterasu is your main target for that sort of combo. Next card is Tetramagus. Tetramagus is pretty much a staple, and this one I can actually zoom in for you because it's in English. So its ability is when placed, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, +1, draw a card, reveal up to 1 trigger unit from your hand and put it at the top of your deck. So again, you know, you can incorporate this at many stages throughout your main phase. You could incorporate at the very start to, you know, for a Sachi skill, or, you know, halfway through with a Susanoo skill, or at the very end whenever you want to go into your battle phase and therefore just drive check the trigger. It fits in quite well with pretty much every sort of reveal here. And then next is Cassata. Cassata is a promo from March 2020. It's not in English just yet, and I think that's just because they're not, I'm not particularly sure why or when it's coming out, but I very much like it because it is a clone of Battle System Macron. When you reveal when drive check reveals a trigger unit, it gains 10k. So it is an 18k booster, 18k attacker for something that you're pretty much guaranteed to get with just how the way the deck operates. So again, with Cassata and Sachi, you know, you're hitting good force numbers, just hitting force numbers by yourself as well. And next is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck is Diviner Muto. So Carnablast, so on place, Carnablast 1, if you put a normal unit from your drop zone on top of your deck, it gains 15k. So this card here is pretty much to cycle Amaterasu or Ikishima, or any cards that you feel like you really need that turn, but those are the two main. But it leans heavily into the favor of Amaterasu, because this means that even if your Amaterasu is in your damage zone, it's not a dead card. You prioritize counterblasting it, then you heal off a drive check or something like that, or a check from Susanoo. It goes into the bin, and then you can Muto it back on top. So it's just to recycle Amaterasu. I've seen some decks that don't play Muto, and I just don't understand it because it does allow you to continuously cycle Amaterasu and therefore guarantee you that extra threat every single turn further down the line. And next is Balthazar Panettone. If you haven't seen this card, it's because it was a 2019 BCS promo. It is quite expensive for what it does. There is another replacement for it if you're not willing to spend $15 on it, which is obviously fair, and I'll explain what the replacement is. So his first ability is Rearguard. Put this card into your soul, like the top 2 cards of your deck. Put a card from among them on top and put the other one to the bottom. And the next trigger you get is an extra 10k. So there's 3 reasons why you play this. The first is you're filtering the top of your deck for reveals. Second is obviously this trigger, the 10k. you're constantly triggering, so you're guaranteed to get, a 20k crit, which can push extra boundaries. And thirdly is the deck does use quite a lot of soul blasts, so you're constantly wanting to use Susanoo, you're constantly wanting to use Divine or Sachi, so being able to control your resource management, which is by chucking it in and receiving benefits from doing that, is always a plus. There's 2 other cards you could play here, if you're not willing to spend that sort of money on it. The first is Peddle Fairy, whose ability is chuck top card, put it to top or bottom. If you put it to bottom, you can give something 6k. So that would work quite well with Sapient Angel, because that brings Sapient Angel up to 15k, and therefore with a Cassata or Muto, you're making yourself hit force numbers. Next one is Gemini, who is after, if you have 3 damage or more, you can put him into soul and flip a damage, which again, you could run those 2 instead of this and save yourself a bit of money. However, I think this does give you a bit more percentage. It's a wee bit better in terms of percentages. So, but those 2 are decent replacements, because you do counterblast quite a lot. You're always using Susanoo, Tetramagus, and Muto. Every single chance you see with these, you're constantly wanting to use the 3, because they work so well together as well. Then triggers are 12 crit and 4 heal. We're specifically running the Sentinel version of the crit. 1, because he looks cool, and 3, the fact that we're getting through our deck so quickly with how much we're cycling through it, is that you're constantly riding your grade 3s, so you're constantly riding Susanoo over Susanoo over Susanoo. Therefore, you can always get protect markers. So he makes your guarding a lot more efficient. And then obviously 4 heals, because obviously. And then being able to actually plan out your heals with Susanoo is quite good. And then finally, just the new starter, Solar Maiden Uzume, who just gets you the quick shield. But yeah, if you want to see how this deck operates, please go see the game where I played against Marcus. And I do really love this deck. I love how much pressure you can get off just getting crits every turn. I typically like to push somebody to 4 really early and hold them at 4, and just constantly make them guard my attacks, because I've just got 3 crits in 1 turn. Either if that's drive checking 2 crits or even 3, because you could effectively do that, and there's a decent chance of you actually doing that. Or maybe there is, Amaterasu's having some influence in that, so you check top 3, it's a Amaterasu and 2 crits. You put at 4, your opponent's at 4 damage, you just split out the threat between your 2 Rearguards and your Vanguard. Therefore your opponent always has to guard your attacks, and because you're hitting massive columns with the likes of Muto, Cassata, and Sachi, or as well as Ikishima, your opponent's going to have to chuck out quite a lot of guard to make sure they don't die. And if you're doing that every single turn, you will whittle their hand down very, very quickly. But yeah, that is the deck profile, and I hope you enjoyed it. And you'll probably see this deck from me quite a lot, because I'm quite enjoying it, and I'm an Oracle Think Tank player. But I hope you have a good one.